So there's really two parts of this puzzle, right? Like when we think about an interface, there's two things that are meaning here. In Java, we frequently talk about one class providing the interface, meaning that it's implementing the methods that the interface requires, and another class using that interface, using the features that it can access through that interface. Where we're going to start here today is talking about writing code that uses an interface. And so to do that, I think one of the more useful built-in interfaces that Java already provides out of the box is something called comparable. And this also brings us back to this idea of this, objects being comparable to each other or having a natural ordering. So let's look at that together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look up Java comparable 14. It's close enough. Apparently not. I want the latest version of the documentation, and here it is. Okay, let me blow this up nice and big. And there's some stuff here that you're not going to quite get. So for example, this, we'll get there. We do get to type parameters by the time we finish the class, but for now, just kind of like ignore this. The idea here is that this is a built-in interface, and you can see that there are quite a few classes in Java that already implement this interface, including some stuff that we should already sort of feel a little bit comfortable with. So string, for example. Various types of the built-in numbers in Java use this interface. And so let's look at what it does, right? So it says this interface imposes a total ordering on the objects of each class that implements it. This ordering is referred to as the class's natural ordering, and the class's compare to method is referred to as the natural comparison method. So what this means is that there might be other ways of ordering the class, but in some case, there's one that's the most natural, the most well established. So again, for numbers, low to high, right? This is something that everybody agrees on. With strings, we put them in lexicographic order. That's dictionary order. That's a convention, right? I mean, there's no rule that's of the universe that says A goes before B or whatever. These are just, again, different languages have their own conventions for how to organize reference materials. So these are just conventions, but the idea is that this is a natural ordering. It's the ordering that you would put these things in, kind of left to your own devices. There may be times when you need to order them differently, but the idea is the comparable interface should implement a natural ordering for the class if one exists. Not every class is going to have a natural ordering, and so what we're going to see is that in future lessons is that by implementing this, we buy into this system, right? If our class implements comparable, then there's some cool things that start to happen. But for now, we're going to talk about using it. And so one of the things that this points out, though, in that vein is that it says lists and arrays of objects that implement this interface can be sorted automatically, right? And so we're going to see this later, which is that if I take a class that I've created and I implement comparable, all of a sudden, these built-in functions like arrays.sort, they work on my class and they do the right thing because what I've told them is, here's how to compare two instances of my class. Okay, there's some more stuff in here that you can look at in terms of a comparison with equality and stuff like that. And so let's look at this together. So the interface, and every interface sets up some group of methods that I need to implement. This interface specifies a single method. And you can think of replacing T here with object. Again, this is one of these places where Java is like a little bit confusing for people because we haven't seen the concept here that's this idea of a type parameter, but you can really think of this as just being an object. So compare to says you can compare with another instance of this object. And it says returns negative integer 0 or a positive integer as this object, the object that's doing the comparison, so this is an instance method, is less than, equal to, or greater than the specified object. And then it has some rules about things that are just there for sanity, right? So for example, if I say x compared to y, and that's negative, then y compared to x should be positive. If it's not, then like stuff's going to go badly later. But this is not usually something that we need to worry too much about. And then, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then, so one of the things too is that it says it's strongly recommended that when I compare two objects using compare to, it returns 0 if equals would also return true. And so, and this is not, it says this is not required, but it's strongly recommended. And so this sort of tells us, and remember, in an interface, this is a place where we need documentation. So the compare to interface allows code in Java to use objects that are comparable to do comparisons on them. And it also allows those objects to provide the method. And so in order for this to all work out, we've all got to agree on exactly how things are going to happen. So for example, this right here is incredibly important. If you implement compare to, but you get this backwards, which is quite easy to do, then what will happen is when you go to sort, you pass an array of your objects to arrays.sort, you'll get the backwards ordering, right? Or if you don't do this properly, you'll get some sort of gibberish. So this is comparable. This is an interface that we're not only going to use, but we'll also implement. I think it's a great example. It's not the only example of a Java interface we'll look at, but it's a good example in the sense that I think it's fairly easy to understand. It's a single method, and it actually does something like quite useful.